What if I told you the reason your food doesn't taste restaurant quality has nothing to do with your recipes and everything to do with the knife in your hand? Picture this. It's a weeknight. You're tired. You just want to throw together something quick. Maybe a stir fry, a simple pasta, nothing complicated. You pull out your knife, you grab a tomato, and instead of that clean, satisfying slice, the blade bounces. It skates across the skin like it's hitting a rubber ball. You push harder. The tomato collapses, seeds and juice shoot across the cutting board. Okay, fine, you move to the onion, but the knife won't grip. You're sawing back and forth, your eyes are watering, and it's not from the onion. It's from the absurdity that this is how hard it is to cut a vegetable. Then come the carrots. The blade is so thick it doesn't slice, it wedges. The carrot cracks in half, pieces fly off the board. You're not cooking, you're in a boxing match with your ingredients. And the garlic? You mince it, but half of it clings to the side of the blade in a sticky mess. You're picking it off with your fingernails, wondering why something so simple feels so unnecessarily hard. This isn't a cooking problem. This is a knife problem. And here's the thing most people never realize. That dull, frustrating knife isn't just slowing you down. It's actually putting you in real physical danger. Let me explain exactly how. There's a saying professional chefs repeat like a mantra. A dull knife is the most dangerous tool in the kitchen. And most people think that's an exaggeration. It's not. When a blade is dull, your brain compensates. You push harder, you grip tighter, you apply force that a sharp knife would never need. And then the blade slips. Not gently, not slowly. It jerks sideways, because all that force you were applying now has nowhere to go. And suddenly you're bleeding over the cutting board wondering how you cut yourself making dinner. But it gets worse. Most budget knife handles are made from cheap, polished plastic. In a dry showroom? They feel fine. In a real kitchen, where your hands are wet from rinsing vegetables, from handling raw chicken, from wiping down counters, they become frictionless, slick, like trying to hold a bar of soap. A dull blade, a slippery handle, maximum force. That's not a kitchen tool. That's an accident designed to happen. And yet millions of people cook with knives like this every single night and blame themselves when things go wrong. I'm just clumsy. No, you're not. Your knife is failing you. Now, most people eventually recognize the problem and try to fix it. They go shopping. They watch reviews. They ask the internet. And what happens next might sound painfully familiar. So you decide, enough is enough. I'm buying a real knife. You go online and immediately you drown. German steel or Japanese steel, high carbon or stainless. VG10, AUS 8, X50 CRMO V15? What's Rockwell hardness? Does it matter? Should the bevel be 15 degrees or 20 degrees? Santoku or Gyuto, forged or stamped? You've gone from wanting to buy a knife to accidentally enrolling in a metallurgy degree. You watch YouTube reviews, 30 of them, 40, and every single one recommends something different. Half of them are clearly paid promotions. You can tell because they're praising a $300 knife with the enthusiasm of someone who got it for free. Maybe you give up on research and just buy a set. The one with the beautiful wooden block and 15 pieces. $80 seems reasonable. It arrives. It looks gorgeous on the counter, but you use them. And every single blade feels identical. Dull out of the box, heavy, clumsy, like cutting with the back of a spoon. Or maybe, and this is the one that stings most, you saw a stunning knife on Instagram. Beautiful Damascus pattern, handcrafted aesthetic, thousands of likes, gorgeous photos. It shows up. You hold it, you try to chop herbs. It can't even cut parsley cleanly. $200. Can't cut parsley. At this point, you start believing a lie. You start thinking, maybe good knives are just expensive. Maybe I need to spend $250 or more. But here's something that completely changes the equation, and most people never hear this. Here's the truth the knife industry keeps obscured behind jargon and marketing. You don't need to understand steel grades. You don't need a $300 blade. You don't need a set. You need a knife that gets 3 things right. Number 1, steel hardness, not type. A blade hardened to 56-58 on the Rockwell scale holds an edge for weeks. Cheap knives sit at 50-52. That's why you're sharpening every Sunday and it's dull by Wednesday. The steel literally cannot retain sharpness at that hardness level. It's physics, not your fault. Number 2, blade geometry. This is the one nobody talks about. If the blade is ground too thick, which most budget knives are because it's cheaper to manufacture, it doesn't slice, it wedges, it forces food apart. That's your carrots cracking, your potatoes splitting, your onions getting crushed into mush instead of falling into clean, even rings. A properly thin, tapered blade glides through food. It separates fibers instead of tearing them. It's the difference between cutting and destroying. Number 3, handle design. Not how it looks in a product photo, how it feels 20 minutes into meal prep. When your hands are wet, when your grip is tired, does the handle sit naturally in your palm or does it fight you? Does it prevent slipping or guarantee it? Get these 3 things right, and the price drops dramatically. So I went looking, not for the best knife money can buy, not for the knife with the most impressive steel name, not for the prettiest handle or the flashiest marketing. I went looking for one thing, the best chef's knife that solves every single frustration I just described. I wanted a knife that stays sharp for more than 3 days, doesn't rust if you leave it on the drying rack, actually slices through food instead of wedging into it, feels comfortable and secure even with wet hands, doesn't require a second mortgage. I filtered through hundreds of Amazon listings. I read thousands of real buyer reviews, not the 5-star generic great knife reviews, but the detailed 3-star and 4-star ones where people get brutally honest about what works and what doesn't. I cross-referenced Reddit recommendations. I looked at what actual home cooks, not sponsored influencer, were telling each other to buy, and one knife kept surfacing. Not from a household name brand, not from a famous knife maker, from a company most people haven't heard of. But the reviews? The reviews told a very specific story. And when I looked at exactly how this knife is built, the steel, the blade, the handle, the balance, I understood why people were calling it the best chef's knife they'd ever owned at any price. Not just for the money, period. Let me break it down. It's the HOSHANHO Professional Chef Knife, 8-inch blade, high-carbon German stainless steel. And I want to walk through exactly why this knife solves every problem I mentioned. Not with hype, with specifics, the steel. It's forged from high-carbon German stainless steel, the same family of steel used in knives costing 3 and 4 times as much. High-carbon means it can be hardened to hold a genuinely sharp edge for weeks. Stainless means it resists rust and corrosion. You can wash it and leave it on the rack overnight without waking up to orange spots on your blade. No babying, no anxiety, just use it and wash it. The blade. This is where it separates itself. The blade is precision ground with a hand-polished edge. It arrives razor sharp. Not kind of sharp for a budget knife sharp. Actually sharp. The kind of sharp where a tomato doesn't resist. You set the blade on the skin, draw it back lightly, and it falls through. No pressing, no sawing, just gravity and a whisper of movement. The blade geometry is thin enough to slice through dense vegetables instead of wedging into them. Carrots don't crack. Butternut squash doesn't require a wrestling match. The blade glides through and food separates cleanly. And here's a detail most people overlook. The curve of the blade is designed to allow a natural rocking motion when you mince. Herbs, garlic, shallots. The blade contacts the board in a smooth arc, so everything gets cut evenly without chasing pieces around the board. The handle. This is the feature that made me stop scrolling. The handle is engineered with an antiseptic, ergonomic design. Not flat plastic, not slippery polished wood. It's contoured to the natural shape of a gripping hand. It has texture and curvature that actually become more secure when wet, not less. That's the opposite of what most budget knives do. It's also lightweight relative to the blade, which means the balance point sits right where it should, near the bolster where the blade meets the handle. The knife doesn't tip forward like an axe. It doesn't drag backward like a club. It sits in your palm and lets you guide it. 20 minutes of chopping, your hand isn't shaking, your wrist isn't aching, you're still going. Now, Mao, I already know what's going through your mind. It's a budget knife from a brand I've never heard of. Come on. Fair. I've been burned too. We've all clicked add to cart on something that looked incredible and arrived feeling like a toy. But here's what's different about this one. Go read the reviews yourself, not the top 3. Scroll down, read the ones from people who've used it for 6 months, a year. The ones from home cooks who say they threw away the rest of their knife set after buying this single blade. Look at the language people use. I didn't know cutting vegetables could feel this easy. My husband bought a $200 knife last year and just admitted mine is better. I've never held a handle this comfortable in my life. These aren't influencer quotes. These are real people who cook dinner every night and finally found a knife that doesn't fight them. Is it a $400 handmade Japanese blade? No, and it doesn't pretend to be. But for what it costs, and for what it does every single day on a real cutting board in a real kitchen, I haven't found anything that competes at this level. But beyond the steel and the handle and the edge, there's a bigger reason I think this knife deserves your attention. And it's something that changes how you actually feel about cooking. Stay with me. Here's something nobody tells you before you upgrade your knife. Your relationship with cooking changes, not in some dramatic cinematic way. In a quiet Tuesday night way. You stop dreading prep. You stop avoiding recipes that require a lot of chopping. You stop ordering takeout because you don't feel like dealing with it. Because when your knife actually works, when it glides through an onion like the onion isn't even there, when carrots fall into perfect coins, when you can mince garlic in 5 seconds and it doesn't stick to the blade, when your hand feels comfortable and your wrist doesn't ache and you're not afraid of slipping, cooking becomes something different. It becomes enjoyable. Not because the food changed, not because you suddenly became a chef, because the one tool you use in every single meal, the one object your hands touch more than anything else in the kitchen, finally stopped working against you. That's what a good chef's knife does. Not a set, not a collection, not 12 blades in a pretty block. One knife, the right one. And the HOSHANHO professional chef knife does exactly that. For a price that won't make you feel guilty or anxious. I'll put a direct link in the description and the pinned comment so you can check it out yourself. Read the reviews. Look at the photos real buyers posted. See how other people who had the exact same frustrations you have right now feel about it after using it for months. No pressure, no urgency gimmick. Just, if you've been cooking with a knife that crushes tomatoes, cracks carrots, slips in your hand, and goes dull every week, you deserve to know there's a better option. And it doesn't cost what you think it costs. Now, I'm genuinely curious, what's the worst knife you've ever owned? Like the one that made you question whether you were even capable of cooking? Drop it in the comments. I've heard some absolute horror stories, and I want to hear yours. And if you want more deep dives like this, where I cut through the marketing noise and find the actual best products in a category, not the most sponsored ones, hit subscribe. I do the research so you don't have to sit through 40 conflicting YouTube reviews. I'll see you in the next one. Now go cook something with a knife that actually lets you.